Warning, the following program contains news talk, solutions, and information not found in filtered media outlets. Viewer discretion is advised.
Attention, you are now about to enter
Filter-Free Radio.
So open your mind, push reset, and reboot your computer.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Looking for filters? Check your coffee maker. This is Filter-Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. Filterfreeradio.com. Get ready to suck down some grounds.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filterfreeradio.com.
This is my favorite show.
We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly.
It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. Filterfreeradio.com.
Welcome to the show. Big show today. Broadcasting live. It is February 17th, 2014. Live at our website, filterfreeradio.com. Live on the home of Nicole Sandler, radioornot.com. Got big news regarding the Nicole Sandler show this week and next week. We'll share that with you coming up. Hey, we're also live with our good friends right now over on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app, tunein.com, and A Online Radio, with a tip of the hat to the man, Kenny Pick. He's the man. And, it's just, however you are with us, you picked a damn good show to be with us. My friends, alternative thinkers, independent minds, and unfiltered truth seekers, broadcasting live here today, Monday. This is Filter Free Radio, a show where we are fed up with the status quo. We're going to talk tonight about how we can change it for real. We're going to talk about how we're going to mobilize the people to get active for real, and we're going to be the change because, hey, if I can reach just one person and make a difference in their life, well, then that's a lifetime of difference. That is a success, and I'm happy to be a part of it with you. And so happy you are a part of it with us. Hey, if you want to carry Filter-Free Radio in some fashion or another, let's do it. Let's hook up. Jacob at filterfreeradio.com. All the contact info is scrolling across the top of the screen. If you want to call in, we'll probably take calls in the second hour of the program, 503-746-TALK. You can also call our phone number anytime, 24/7, and leave us your messages at 503-746-TALK. By my side, as always, is my super duper awesome mass producer, co-host, kick-ass, all around, awesome brother from another mother, Mr. Skeptical Scott, who is live in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. with us.
Hello.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on?
Hey, Scott's in the house. Woohoo. Time to get the revolution started tonight. Woohoo, right?
You know that's right.
That's right. And there's so much going on in the news, right? But I'm tired of talking about all of the problems. And tonight, I don't want to talk about the problems. I don't want to talk about climate change. I don't want to talk about the speech and the media suppression. I don't want to talk about wealth inequality or the corporate media or the stand your ground laws in Florida or the warrantless wiretapping or the spying on Americans. Tonight, I want to talk about the solutions to solve all of those problems. And the solutions are very simple. It's social movements, but not just any kind of social movements, successful social movements. It's going to be a good show, Scott, and we're going to answer a lot of questions that we normally talk about, but tonight I want to put it all together in one nice, concise piece, and hopefully someone's going to dig it. I want to talk about how the solutions are the successful social movements. Why do we need those movements? Why nonviolence? Why does the movement need a plan? Why do I have to participate locally? That's you too. And who has the power? What is the movement action plan map? What are the 8 stages of successful social movements? What are the goals? What are the dangers in each of those 8 stages? How do we make it happen? I'm going to talk about it tonight, and we're really going to get into it. And if you listened to the previous program last week, we started to get into it a little bit, didn't have enough time to finish it, ran out of time, and I want to do this justice and kind of finish the conversation tonight. And then, of course, if we have time, there's so much else going on. We've got news headlines to get into from Democracy Now!, and there's a new article from Chris Hedges on truthdig.com, which is a pretty good one. Our Sinister Dual State, it's a pretty good one. Hopefully we got time, we'll get into that. Sounds good, man? All right.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, I'm pumped tonight. It's going to be a good...
Did you throw the climate change thing in there? I missed that part.
Yeah.
All the list of things we need to work on.
Yeah, it was the first one. It was the first one.
It's so overwhelming. It's hard to keep track.
Did you see Bill Nye beat down... I'm sorry, but I was watching Bill Nye, the science guy, beat down Marsha Blackburn yesterday morning.
Oh, yeah, that's on YouTube. I haven't seen it yet.
It's interesting. I took a picture of myself while I was screaming at the TV, and I put it up on our Facebook page. And Carmen, my girlfriend, said it's kind of creepy. But I liked it because of what I was wearing. It is my sweatshirt that says, good planets are hard to find, right?
Good one.
It's just the idea that I, as a human being, need a certain kind of climate as a living, breathing organism. I need a certain climate range in which I can exist. And if that range shifts dramatically, one way or the other, too soon, I don't think we can adapt. I don't know. We'll see.
It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be a little bit. I mean, we're a very fragile species, like all species, and all species go extinct, and humans are no exception. So we need to maintain our ecosystem, or we're screwed.
And the good news is there is a solution, and the solution is organizing a nonviolent, successful social movement against the fossil fuel industry in favor of renewable, sustainable energy, the energy of tomorrow, so we can talk about the future of tomorrow and maybe actually give our future a chance tomorrow, right?
That's a good slogan, dude. Give future a chance.
Give future a chance. Filter Free Radio, giving future a chance. I love it. The piece that we're going to get into tonight was written by a fellow named Bill Moyer. And again, this is a little bit of a repeat if you joined us last week. I want to, in case folks missed that, I mentioned this is not the Bill Moyers, as in Bill Moyers and Company or Bill Moyers Journal on OPB. Different Bill Moyer, who actually passed away back in 2002. Bill Moyer was an organizer, a writer, a trainer, a strategist. He worked on a wide range of different social movements for over 25 years. His experience included work with the civil rights, anti-Vietnam War, anti-nuclear energy and weapons, European nuclear disarmament, non-intervention in Central America movements. He was staffed with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference's Poor People's Campaign. He was the director of the American Friends Service Committee Chicago Open House Program, the National Nonviolence Trainer, and co-founder of the Movement for a New Society and its Philadelphia Life Center, just to name a few of the things, right? And this essay, which he talks about, the introduction, he talks about why Bill came to write this essay. And he talks about back in 1977, in the spring of 77, when the United States anti-nuclear energy movement was launched, and all of the Clamshell Alliance activists occupied the Seabrook nuclear power site and spent 12 days in jail. During those 2 weeks, nuclear energy became a worldwide public issue and was at, the mass media spotlight, focused on all of the activists locked, up throughout New Hampshire. Support demonstrations popped up all over the country, and they had created instantly, essentially, a new nationwide uprising against their movement at the time, which was nuclear energy and that powerful energy industry, right? And in late 77, 78, way before my time, back in the days when the Portland Trailblazers were world champions, Bill Moyer was supposed to give a speech to what he thought was going to be this group of super pumped, happy, spirited, upbeat, energetic, proud, anti-nuclear activists of that clamshell alliance. Bill Moyer writes in this essay, I eagerly looked forward to attending the strategy conference in February 1978 with the 45 clamshell organizers from around New England. That Friday night, I was shocked when the clamshell activists arrived with their heads bowed. They were dispirited. They were depressed, saying that their efforts had been in vain. And after 2 years of hard effort, the Seabrook nuclear power plant was still being constructed. Or, let's put in today's context, after 3 hard years of work, the Keystone XL pipeline is still being constructed, right? And some people are reporting massive burnout. People are dropping out. People are speaking for the need for increased, militant action. Some folks get really radical and talk about, violence. You guys maintain the nonviolence. We'll get into that in just a minute, why violence is not okay. And none of these guys even believe that we can even get enough people together to make a necessary massive movement, right? Bill Moyer goes on, he says, I stayed up most of that night creating a model framework now called the Movement Action Plan, MAP, M-A-P, right? Movement Action Plan, that describes stages that successful social movements go through. And the Movement Action Plan was first published in 1986 in the edition of the Dandelion. 12,000 copies were published and distributed. We posted a link to the revised edition of that article, and folks, everyone is invited to participate, to go find the article, to share it, to link it, to read the entire thing, which I don't have time to go through all 36 pages. We only have time to go through 13 pages this hour, so we're going to get into it. And like I said, one of the first questions we need to start with is, why do we need social movements? Scott, man, tell me, why do we need social movements?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me because this is sort of things I learned years ago and I put in the past and I'm moving on.
Right.
So to revisit what I consider basic knowledge.
Right.
I'm a loss for words at some point. But the point is, movements, nothing changes without movements. And if you look throughout history, the question is not, as Karl Popper wrote in his book, An Open Society and Its Enemies, the question is not, how do we get good people to rule? Those who are attracted to power are at best mediocre and more often venal, which is Obama, Bush, etc. The question is, how do we make the powerful more afraid of us in order to do our will, i.e. the will of the people? And so what we have now is we have powerful interests who are weighed against us in the name of profits. It's in their best interest to make as much money as possible and screw everybody else and the planet and everything else in their way.
The 1% versus the 99%, essentially, right?
Yeah, that's the whole struggle. Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that the struggle, to quote Milan Kundera, the struggle against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. I mean, we must never forget. We must never forget that.
You can say that one again.
The quotations from Milan Kundera, Kundera, quote, the struggle of people against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. We should never forget that the primary goal of great power is to distract and limit our natural desire for social justice. And so the problem we have these days, in the name of profit, power is consolidated against us. The history of humanity is the history of the haves versus the have-nots. The distractions that we have against all these other brands, and by brands I mean left, right, red, blue, liberal, Democrat, conservative, Republican, whatever. Mm-hmm. Those are just brands and distractions. The reality is, if you're not a multi-billionaire, and I mean billion with a B, which is thousands of millions of dollars, $1 billion is 1,000 million.
That's a lot.
It's insane. I can't wrap my head around it, not even on a day-to-day basis.
How could you spend that much money?
You'd be surprised. You can buy a lot of politicians with it.
Man, I can't fathom that. I was saying that earlier. Today. I can't even fathom having that much money, let alone how would I spend that kind of money? I mean,
you'd find a way. You'd buy a small country.
Yeah, right.
And that's the whole point. That's what we are. Where's where we are today? Our country's been bought bought and paid for by large multinational corporations whose best interests our so-called elected officials and our government serve.
And our only hope is...
And our only hope is movements. And
Yes.
movements throughout history have always been the mechanism for change. The civil rights movement, that fought for equal rights among minorities. The suffragists, which fought for women's rights. The labor movement, which gave us the 40-hour work week and eliminated child labor. And even the Liberty Party, which fought against slavery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, without movements, nothing changes. And so far, nothing's changed since the 60s. When was the last time we had a movement? The 60s.
You know, and I hear all the time people say, well, I feel like, my vote doesn't matter. I feel like my voice doesn't matter. I feel like I'm not even involved in the political process. Well, the best way that you can directly involve yourself in the political process is to participate in a social movement, because you have a choice and you have a voice. You might as well use them.
And the sense of community, the importance and the need for community. I mean, part of the capitalist system in which we live under is division, divide and conquer. Right. People identify with things that are irrelevant. I mean, it's really irrelevant. Liberal, Democrat, conservative, Republican, whatever you want to call it, it's irrelevant. What's relevant is who has the money and the power and who does not. And we don't have any power, and there's strength in numbers. And that's what the very wealthy are afraid of.
Exactly. You touched on something there, that the central issue of social movements is the struggle between the movement and the power holders to win the hearts, sympathies, minds, public opinion, and active support of the majority of the people, which the majority of the people hold the power to create change. Or, consequently, the people inactively hold the power inconsequently to preserve the status quo. Or in other words, we the people have the power. And there needs to be a revival of democracy. If we want a revival of democracy, it can only come through people power. Period.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And to quote one of my favorite videos, you can check it out on my video blog, is the journalist John Pilger's speech from 2009. And I'll just read the last line for you. What Obama and the bankers and the generals and the IMF and the CIA and CNN fear is ordinary people coming together and acting together. It's a fear as old as democracy, a fear that suddenly people will convert their anger to action and are guided by truth. And the last quote is, at a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act.
Yeah, it is.
That's a quote by George Orwell.
Hell yeah, it is. And you talk about revolution. Well, and I mentioned the nonviolence thing. Why does it have to always be and maintain a nonviolent stance and always a nonviolent social movement? Because nonviolent social movements are the most powerful means for preserving democracy and making societies address critical social problems. If you think there's a problem, this is how we address it, with nonviolent social movements, because they enable we the people to challenge the prevailing centers of power and become active in society's decision-making process, especially at times like right now when the normal channels for our political participation are relatively ineffective. Nonviolent social movements mobilize we the people, in other words, and public opinion to challenge the powers to be and the whole society to adhere to universal values and sensibilities and redress social problems, right and wrong, which you and I, thanks to the Constitution and the First Amendment, have a right to free speech and the right to redress our grievances.
For now, anyway.
Sort of, on paper. Right?
And that's rapidly being eroded.
Yeah, how about that Fourth Amendment?
There's a lot of evidence, and the Fifth, there's a lot of evidence to that. But, I mean, the point here, too, is that violence has only, and throughout the history of mankind, violence has only worked when fighting off an invading and conquering army or an invading country. Violence does not work to settle domestic skirmishes, or domestic differences. And obviously the Civil War is a good example of what did not work. And the way you get, one of the things you mentioned there, you sort of almost grazed over a little bit, was that popular opinion. You do not win popular opinion with violence. People are not attracted to violence. They're not going, ooh, that guy's got a gun. He's a hero of mine. No.
Right.
People are attracted to things that they can become part of, that they feel safe and comfortable around. And that's what made Occupy movement so dangerous, because there were women and children there on Saturdays with their strollers protesting.
Right. Absolutely. Violent movement activities and violent attitudes violate the society's values and sensibilities, which is actually part of where the people power comes from. We'll talk about that in just a second. But acts of violence like, rebellious, posturing and these, ridiculous acts of random violence, who not all the time are actually done by the people who are considered part of the movement, but rather it's occasionally other people who are infiltrating the movement to cause ruckus. We talked about that before. But any violent movement activities turn both the public and other activists off and turn them against the movement, and decreases participation when, like folks in the chat room at radioornot.com are talking about right now, participation. Or at least they were talking about participation a minute ago. And
Yay, participate. Don't hate, participate.
There's a great Pete Seeger quote. Words, I can't remember the exact quote. It's words to the effect of, the only thing that's going to save the human species is participation. Something like that.
Yeah, I amen to that. And that's not my biggest thing. That's why I don't like talking about politics. I don't even like talking about our so-called politicians, because it's just celebrity worship. It's part of our celebrity gossip, and it's a whole distraction. Talking about civics and our civic duty are things that are words you don't hear anymore in the general zeitgeist. And we have, a duty to the commons. What is the common good? What is common decency? These are terms and these are issues that need to be addressed in order to attract a large number of people to galvanize resistance against what is currently happening to us.
And so you might ask, okay, so we need movements, right? Why do we need a movement action plan? Why does the movement need a plan? Because, successful social movements need plans. Almost any goal to achievement path requires a plan. Think about it. If the movement does... Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
I was just going to say that's what killed Occupy was there was no plan. I mean, it's organic and all that, and that's great, but without plans, short and long-term plans, and organizing and all this stuff, you're done. And that's sort of that's part of what happened.
It was just the beginning. It was really like stage 1 through 4, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And if the movement doesn't have a plan, then the movement has no plan to stick to. And then the plan, or rather the participants, the activists, have no idea how to measure their success if they don't have a guiding framework to look at as the movement progresses forward. Without a plan, we can't identify the successes that we've already achieved to motivate us, inspire us, and to go on to the next steps. Like you said, Scott, long-term goals and short-term goals, strategies, tactics, programs, and plans are what successful social movements are made of. Yeah, folks in the chat room and leaders.
They take decades. They take they take at least a decade.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that. It's a hard idea to grasp that the things that we're fighting for, we may never see within our lifetime. But that never stops Susan B. Anthony or, MLK, I mean, the list goes on, right?
It does not discredit our struggle.
Absolutely not. And folks in the chat room say, leaders, this is one of my favorite sayings I've been hammering as much as I can. I tell you, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. And when the people lead, the leaders will follow. And that's what social movements are. It's when the people step up and lead and say, hey, this shall not go on no longer. And then someone like a Bernie Sanders or an Alan Grayson have an opportunity to jump out and, put their flag in front of the parade and say, yep, here we go. And then the people force them to do it. Not that, Bernie or Alan or whoever wouldn't do it. It's just they have to be forced to. And that's what history shows us. So that comes back to you and me. And then the next question, why do I have to participate locally? Or why do you have to participate locally? Because all resistance is local. Most social problems have to be resolved through changes in policies and structures at the national level. We agree. But the national power of social movements comes from the strength of its individual local groups connected via solidarity. National social movements are only as powerful as their grassroots local movements. How else is a national social movement built other than by starting with lots of local movements independently operating first?
Well, yeah, that's what you do, and you build all these different local movements that are galvanized around local issues, be that clean water or clean air or privatization of the commons and their taxes, whatever, what have you. Everyone has their issues, and there should be movements around each individual issue. And then what you have on a global or on a national scale, and nowadays we're going to need it on a global scale. Don't kid yourself. There are no more nation states. There's corporate states, and that's it. And so you need national, global movements to come together and force the hand of the very wealthy and the very powerful. But first, you have to start very small.
And here we are, Filter Free Radio. We're live on our website, Nicole Sandler's network, and Liberal Justice Radio. But it starts somewhere, right? Hey, and
no active resistance is too small.
And let that be a call for, we need your help to grow. We are grassroots, so the only way the show grows is if you spread the word, share a link, like us on the Facebook, check out our website, new website coming soon. Woohoo! Lots of cool stuff coming up. Okay, here is the part where I get to the disclaimer of the whole movement action plan. So, what? Wait a minute. I thought you had the whole solution right here, right? I'm not even that naive, right? Okay. Here's the disclaimer, and even this is directly quoting Bill Moyer and his movement action plan essay. And I'm calling it the disclaimer, but it's the truth here. The purpose of the movement action plan, MAP, M-A-P, is to give activists hope and empowerment, increase the effectiveness of social movements, and reduce the discouragement that often tributes to individual burnout, dropout, and the winding down of social movements. MAP, the Movement Action Plan, describes these 8 stages, which we're going to get into, through which the social movements normally progress over a period of years and decades, as Scott mentioned. For each stage, the Movement Action Plan describes what the role of the public is, what the role of the power holders is, and what the role of the movement is. It provides organizers with a map of the long road of successful social movements, which helps them guide their movement along the way. However, social movements clearly do not always fit neatly into these Movement Action Plan 8 stages, nor do social movements in reality move through any sort of pragmatic steps in a linear way. Social movements are much more dynamic. Movements have a number of different demands and a number of different pathways of progress. And so remember, there's always more than one way to get to our destination, right? But this is a great map. It's the Movement Action Plan, a.k.a. MAP. And I tell you what, we're going to get into it. We're going to take a short break right now. We're going to come back with who has the power? Where does that power come from? And then what is the Movement Action Plan? What is the MAP forward to give future a chance? We're going to get into that next on Filter Free Radio. Don't go anywhere. FilterFreeRadio.com, RadioOrNot.com, live on Liberal Justice Radio. We're available all sorts of places. We'll be right back.
This is Liberal Justice Radio.
It's not real. It's just a computer-generated fantasy.
Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn and A Online Radio.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just download the free Stitcher app from Stitcher.com or in the App Store and search for Filter Free Radio. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. So download the free Stitcher app, search for Filter Free Radio, and start benefiting from unfiltered radical truth-telling anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio. Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean. With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
I had the honor of interviewing Jill Stein, the actual Green Party presidential candidate for 2012. Our interview is at our website at filterfreeradio.com if you haven't watched it already. And in the conversation, I told Jill Stein, I was like, I used to work for Thom Hartmann. And where I'm at now is I'm developing a focus on the activism, on the participation, on the real difference making, not so much the political hearsay. And Jill Stein told me essentially words to the effect of, why is it that when people are abused, they always continue to keep running back to the abuser?
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Why do we keep running back to the Democratic Party that keeps abusing us when we, as progressives, should be progressing forward?
FilterFreeRadio.com.
Attention, class. Today's word is fractal inequality. Okay, that's a phrase, not a word, and a very wonky one. It means uneven inequality, but the unevenness refers not to the relatively poor, but to the relatively super rich, the 1%ers versus the 1/10 and 1/100ths of 1%ers. The 1% averages an income of about $1 million a year, while the 1/100ths clique tops $30 million. Wow. How do you even spend 30 big ones a year? Your penthouse, Lamborghini, dinner every night at Le Petit Fortune, etc., still leaves some $20 million for you to play with. Luckily, the New York Times has answered this question for us commoners in a recent article headlined, "Wealthiest Americans Go House Hunting Abroad." It seems that there are bargains to be had on old castles in the Irish countryside, so many super-rich Americans are buying a piece of the old sod for themselves. Parisian townhouses and wine country chateaux are always in vogue, so why not have one or two? But the big action for American swells is in the Caribbean, where a 5-bedroom villa on St. Bart's, for example, can sop up $14 million of your spare cash. The article tells us, however, that the latest trend is not simply to buy a fabulous house overlooking the pink sand beaches of some resort island, but to buy your very own Caribbean island. What cachet! One popular possibility is the Exuma Cays, a cluster of 360 islands in the Bahamas. For instance, here's one 47-acre island with a 3,000-foot airstrip and 7 white sand beaches that can be had for just over $15 million. This is Jim Hightower saying, as an online dealer in private islands notes, buying one is about the majestic image it bestows on the buyer. They want to be steward of their own little piece of the world, he marveled.
Hightower's commentary is brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown. From Wall Street to Washington, this monthly newsletter reveals who's doing what to whom and why. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Your view is not being represented in this country because all of our views have been corrupted by money and politics. Remember, 94% of the time, the candidate who raises the most money wins.
That's the fact that we need to drive home constantly. It's all about the money. Dylan Radigan, you rock.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
Live 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
I don't need you. I got money.
If you're not rich, blame yourself.
Oh boy, I'm rich.
Well, for once, the rich white man is in control.
I quit my job. We're rich now. I don't need to be working.
When I get my hands on that money.
You know, rich people are just poor people with money. What's the difference? Rich people are just poor people with money.
The rich are different. Because when you have that much money, then human beings become disposable. Even friends and family become disposable and are replaced. And when the rich take absolute power, then the citizens become disposable, which is in essence what's happened.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking about successful social movements, which is our only hope. The solutions to our problems of climate change, wealth inequality, media and speech suppression, the corporate media, the stand your ground laws in Florida, the warrantless wiretapping and spying on Americans. The solution is a social movement. And we're talking about who's got the power. Keep this in mind. We, the people, have the power. The power ultimately resides with we, the people. Even in societies with strong power elites and the super, ooper, duper rich, those power holders' power is dependent upon you and me, us, we, the people, the worker bees, the people, the cooperation and the support of the mass public. The movement, the social movement, for change, for the better for all of us, the real hope and change we're looking for. The strategy is not only to use the inside game, the normal channels in an effort to persuade power holders to change their mind, but we have to use an outside game and alert, educate, mobilize a disconnected, impassioned, and determined grassroots population using nonviolent means beyond the normal preliminary methods and institutions. Social movements use people power in a successful, non-violent outside game. Bada bing, bada boom. Hey, quick shout out to everyone who is in the chat room there over at radioornot.com. Hey guys, it's great to see the conversation. I'm not the best at typing in the chat room and doing the show all at the same time, so I want to give you a shout out and say I'm reading what you're writing, and I love the conversation over there, guys. The Orwellian society might have a problem with stage 7. We'll see. Dun, dun, dun. Where's my drama sting? Dun, dun, dun. I think the people power can overcome it. And you ask, well, where does that movement power come from? Where does people power come from? The source of power of social movements lies in two basic human qualities: our strong, natural human sense of right and wrong, and the fact that we understand the world and reality largely through symbolism, our image-based society. Those 2 points are where people power comes from. And we derive that power when the people have deeply felt beliefs and values, a sense of right and wrong, and they realize that their sense of right and wrong, these beliefs and values have been violated. That's where the people power is derived from. Social movements derive their power from an upset, impassioned, and motivated and inspired populace set into motion. And we are like on the brink of this. This happens when people recognize that their strongly felt beliefs, values, and interests are unjustly being violated, and that the population is provided with hope and change that can happen. And here's the thing, we need a means for we the people to act and to make a difference and to directly participate in the process here, and it is with nonviolent social movements. Not just sit back and passively hope and bitch and complain. We need to act, and this is how we act with a social movement, and this is the action plan, right? Here it is. The process of achieving positive change through social movements is the struggle between the social movement and the power holders of the hearts and minds in support of the general public. The purpose of social movements is to educate. That's a big opening line there. The purpose of social movements is to educate and win over an increasingly larger majority of the public and to mobilize the majority of the public into effective action and force that brings about social change. To achieve this, movements need to be grounded in strongly felt and widely held human and cultural values, right and wrong, symbols, sensibilities, and traditions of the general population, such as right and wrong, freedom, democracy, justice, truth, and human rights. Only by showing the public that the movement upholds these values and that the power holders violate them can the population be won over and stirred to the level of passion required for them to act. Period. This is where filter-free radio comes into play. The purpose of this show is to show the public that social movements uphold and respect your values and your rights, and that the corporate state and those in power are violating our rights. And that if we all get together and figure this out as a population, generally speaking, we can make change happen. And in order to achieve the social movement, we must have a strategy. And here are the goals of that strategy: to publicly show that the social conditions and the power holder policies violate our values and our traditions and the interests of we the people. Keep the issue and moral violations in the public spotlight and in society's agenda of hotly contested issues. We have to keep the issues and the power holders' policies on society's political agenda. We have
Right, and that's why violence doesn't work, because you see the moral high ground. You've already, and that's all you have is morals, the moral high ground. So you're done.
Yeah.
Because violence is inherently amoral. I mean, so.
Bam.
And, and the thing too is resistance works on two tracks. One, obviously what we're talking about now, which is fighting against the current system and fighting to change it. And two, cutting ourselves off and creating a parallel system, so that when the current system does collapse, and it will, it's clearly unsustainable. You give people an alternative, and that's part of the movements. People who are in movements live quote unquote alternative lifestyle, and are able, and because they don't need the corporate system anymore, and that's why they're able to fight against it. Because once it's gone, you have people who are even on a much larger scale becoming more communal, doing things that are just small things, not using paper towels, growing your own food. I mean, I know it sounds kind of hippie-ish, but the point is that the corporate state is killing us in many ways, not least to which petrochemicals and pharmaceuticals and you name it. And so by cutting ourselves off from these literally there are systems of death, and it's not even hyperbolic anymore. By doing that, you give people an alternative.
Right.
And then you go out there and you protest and you say, here's our alternative. And we want these alternatives to become mainstream. And that's what pushes the corporate system out. I mean, the pharmaceutical and insurance, look, the insurance industries are the problem. And anybody who wants to talk about Obamacare, just as an example, or any kind of healthcare, Medicare, whatever you want to call it, has to talk about how the insurance industry is the problem and needs to be eliminated. The private for-profit insurance company is a parasite. And once you eliminate that parasite, then we all have healthcare, all our taxes go to the common good, and things are far better. But as long as they're allowed to siphon off money away from us, well, we're going to continue to suffer, and people are going to continue to die in the name of corporate profits. And that's just one small example.
Sorry, I'm typing in the chat room real quick. You caught me. I was trying to get one into the chat room.
I have a tendency to end sentences abruptly. Did you notice that?
No, that's okay. That's fine.
It's like,
folks are talking about how cold it is. Of course, we're talking about climate change and everything. And some folks talking about ice and stuff. And earlier today, not during the show, but I was like, some folks are snowed in like Snowden right now. And I was probably the only person who thought that was kind of funny.
Don't you love alliterations?
Hey.
You love alliterations too much there, buddy.
Yeah, but no, I'm with you. And the thing is there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of myth and false justification and denial. And we just have to break through that and convince people that the alternatives are better than the current abuses. And I'm about to do that right now once we get into the 8 stages of the successful social movements, okay? And stage 1, so that's basically the setup, okay? That really answers a lot of the questions. Why we need the movements, because it's our only hope. Why nonviolence? Because it wins hearts and minds. Why did we need a plan? Because no duh, we need a plan. Look at Occupy. Why do I have to participate locally? Because all resistance is local. Who has the power? The people have the power. The last 2 questions we haven't answered are, what is the movement action plan? And what are the 8 stages of successful social movements? And what are the goals and dangers of each stage? And how do we make it happen? Here we go. Here's stage number 1, normal times. Move along. Nothing to see here. Go back to sleep. Stage 1, normal times. Violations.
Or code imitation.
Thank you. Violations of values and our self-interests of the general society are relatively unnoticed. They are neither in the public spotlight nor on the agenda of hotly contested issues. What very little social movement action or in resistance of these conditions that exists is very small, and it receives more public ridicule than support. We often feel like lone voices in the woods right at this stage in the beginning. The principal dissent groups hold nonviolent demonstrations, rallies, pickets, nonviolent civil disobedience actions, and these groups are really small. They barely get noticed, never covered on any corporate news, clearly, and are really essentially ineffective at achieving their demands. Though their symbolic actions, however, the principal dissent groups are a shining moral light in the darkness. At this point, the goals of stage 1 are simply to document that a problem exists, to maintain an active opposition, no matter how small, and move on to the next stage. And the main danger of stage 1 is to be stuck in normal times indefinitely, because we often feel politically gullible, not knowing the realities of political and social life. And I'm powerless to create change. You're not powerless because people have the power. Okay, stage 2. Prove the failure of institutions. Remember, the intensity of public feeling, opinion, and upset required for social movements to occur can happen only when we, the people, realize that the governmental policies violate widely held beliefs and values. The opposition, the social movements, must prove that both the problem exists and that the official power holders and institutions perpetuate that problem. Ever notice how we keep going around in the same circle of crap over and over again? Nothing ever seems like it really changes, though it's always changing. It just never seems like it changes. You know what I mean? So the goals of the movement at stage 2, again, document the problem, right? Include the involvement of the power holders that be. Document them. Document that we, the people, are attempting to use the normal channels of citizen participation and prove that they do not work anymore. The game has changed, right? We have to document that, and we have to begin to build small opposition organizations and undertake research to prove that the problem exists, which violates social values and sensibilities, and prove that the official doctrine and policies of the governmental and corporate state power holders and institutions violate our society's values and violate the public trust. And this is not only done on the internet researching fact, quote-unquote fact on the internet, but we actually have to try things and get out there and explore every avenue for official citizen participation in the democratic process for deciding on social policies and programs, and prove that they don't work anymore. We have to testify, undertake challenges, and file complaints in every branch of the bureaucratic machinery at the local, state, federal level of both public and private bodies that are supposed to be open for citizen participation and redress of grievances. We have to prove that we have kangaroo courts, even though that's kind of already been done for us, right? We have to go to every decision-making body, whether we're welcome or not. We have to take our concerns to city council, to state assembly, and to national Congress. But wait, at stage 2, positive results are not even expected yet. The point is not to win the cases, but simply at this point in the game to prove that and document that the power holders are preventing the democratic system from working. The system doesn't work anymore. And lots of folks are documenting that. That's what their part in the role is, right? And the dangers that we have to look out for in stage 2, we have to be concerned and look out for holding on to the belief that social problems can only be corrected by professional opposition organizations, only by using mainstream institutions and methods without building any new social consensus, without mobilizing the people, without mobilizing grassroots opposition, and engaging in a long struggle which uses extra parliamentary nonviolent action that changes the present imbalance of power. And we cannot continue to feel powerless and hopeless, because our hope is we, the people, have the power. All right, stage 3. Are you digging it? Are you not digging it? Are the movements going to save us, or should we just vote in the right guy? Hey, when we do when we do our brand new website, we're going to have a Filter Free Radio weekly poll, and I'm going to make snarky questions up like that. And I'm going to test you. Which obvious answer should you be clicking on? Just to see, just to poll the folks who are hopping on filterfreeradio.com. New website coming. Stay tuned.
Yay.
Wait a minute. We have a thing for that. Hey. Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, man. I want you to chime in, even though I'm moving a little bit faster because I remember what happened last time, and we're moving along though. I'm on stage 3.
I was just chatting in the chat room here, so I was listening and carrying on a separate conversation at the same time. So
Perfect.
I apologize.
No, it's perfect, and I'm happy that folks are participating in the chat room. It is so cool. RadioOrNot.com, FilterFreeRadio.com. If you're listening to us on a pre-recorded, on the iTunes for free or on Stitcher for free, we broadcast the show live Mondays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, FilterFreeRadio.com. And we got chat rooms. Woo! Okay, stage 3 of successful social movements. Stage 3, ripening conditions. The takeoff stage of a new social movement requires preconditions that build up over many years, right? The conditions that Occupy Wall Street, the Occupy Wall Street movement started on, those preconditions built up over many years, and the Occupy movement was a takeoff new social movement based upon those preconditions that built up over many years. Comprende, right? These conditions include broad historic developments, a growing disconnected population of victims and allies, and a budding independent grassroots opposition, all of which encourage discontent with the present conditions, raise expectations that we can change things, and provide the means to do it. And the growing number of discontented local people across the country quietly start new independent local groups, new, like Occupy groups, right? Which as a whole form like a new wave of grassroots opposition. It's a small local prototype demonstrations and nonviolent action campaigns start to dramatize the problem. And a few key factor facilitator visionaries provide the new wave local opposition with information, ideology, training, networking, hope, and a vision of a rising opposition. I kind of like that part. And then the goals of Stage 3, the purpose of Stage 3 is to help create the conditions for the takeoff of a social movement to happen. Those goals essentially are to recognize the historical conditions that help make a new movement possible. Learn our history and do our homework. We have to create, we have to inspire, we have to prepare the new social movement groups, including information of new networks, new leadership, new expertise, new ideas that will spearhead the new social movement. Prepare.
Right, that speaks to what I was talking about earlier with building parallel systems so that we no longer need the corporate state in which we are so, desperately trying or desperately need to get rid of. That's why growing your own food's like printing your own money.
Yes. Amen. Hey, where is that? Hey. All right. And then the other goal of Stage 3 is just to personalize the problem and bring about a small prototype nonviolent action project. There are dangers of all stages, right? And I mention these because this is very important. This is like the feedback I always get from folks. And this is how you combat that negativity and transform that into positive action. You got to watch out for the dangers of stage 3, not recognizing the ripening conditions for a new social movement, having the bureaucracy, legalism, and centralized power of professional opposition organizations such as like the ACLU squash the creativity, independence, and nonviolent methods and spontaneity of the new grassroots movements to come, or try to co-opt them, right? Occupy was really cool about not really allowing that movement to be co-opted by anyone or anything, and that was really cool how they tried to remain independent, and that's what needs to happen. The stage, and that's what you got to look out for in stage 3, is when we're ready to start, we can't be co-opted, and we can't be crushed out by the already existing professional opposition organizations that only exist and maintain their ways through the traditional routes, right? The stage is set for a new social movement, and we have problems and we need solutions, and the stage is set for the solution, the new social movement. Here we are, 2014, February 17th, 4:55 p.m. on the West Coast, 7:55 on the East Coast. The stage is set for us. There is a critical problem that appears to be worsening, proven violations by those in power, many victims, spreading discontent, historical conditions avast, available pre-existing networks we can use, and an emerging new wave of grassroots opposition. The stage is set for stage number 4 of successful social movements. Stage 4, social movement takeoff. This was essentially what the Occupy movement tactic is a social movement takeoff. New social movements surprise and shock everyone when they burst into the public spotlight, onto the evening TV corporate news, only to be ridiculed and in the newspaper headlines. Overnight, a previously unrecognized social problem becomes a mainstream social issue that everyone is talking about. Wealth inequality, and it starts with a highly publicized, shocking incident, a trigger event. Something like Rosa Parks getting arrested on the bus, which is then followed by the nonviolent action campaign, like sit-ins. That includes large rallies, the people participating, dramatic civil disobedience. Soon, these are repeated in different local communities around the country. A new social movement happens, but it can only happen when we, the people, organize a dramatic nonviolent action campaign immediately following a trigger event, and when the nonviolent action campaign is repeated in local areas across the country. Then we have a national movement. The nonviolent action campaign keeps the public spotlight on the problem, builds social tension over time, and then this political theater we use, this process becomes a social crisis, which turns the problem into a public issue. The new movement takes off as the nonviolent action campaign and their social political drama actions and demonstrations are repeated throughout local communities throughout the country. And the powers to be are pissed. And we got to talk about what are the goals of stage 4, what we have to look out for stage 4, and we'll finish the rest of the 8 stages. Coming up, social movements, we're talking about solutions to climate change, solutions to wealth inequality, solutions to stand your ground laws, solutions to the NSA spying on Americans. It's nonviolent social movements. Time to get active, y'all. We'll be right back. FilterFreeRadio.com.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
My biggest problem, my biggest issue with folks on the left is we don't do enough. We sit here and we talk a good talk. We do all the intellectual discussions and debating and thought-provoking writings, but we don't actually do anything much more than that. There are a few of us that go out and give it and do something about it, but really not enough.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Oh, but there's problems with the Occupy movement. No, the problem was you didn't show up. Oh, well, there's problems with nonviolent massive strikes. That's not going to work. You know why it doesn't work? Because you don't participate.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
Tune in to Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and TuneIn.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Pick, founder of Liberal Justice Radio, and I wanted to take a few minutes to let you know about our schedule here. First and foremost, on Mondays, you can check out Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott on Filter Free Radio, live from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Jacob and Scott give you unfiltered news, opinion, and analysis on stories that the mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. It's a fantastic show that you won't want to miss. Then on Tuesdays, there's my show, Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick. I have many co-hosts, Tom, Deba, Matt, Kim, and Pete on Tuesdays. That's 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. We have lots of laughs. We talk about politics. We talk about news. We talk about all kinds of stuff. You'll love it. We also have a Friday show, but we'll get to that momentarily. We're proud to announce that we have a brand new addition to our live family, and that's the Bradcast, of course, hosted by the world-renowned Brad Friedman of the Brad Blog and the Green News Report. And we're very happy to have him on from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Then Thursdays, well, everybody gets the night off for good behavior. Then Friday comes back around, and yeah, that's right, Turn Up the Night is back. It's me, Tom, Deba, and Matt back for more fun. And again, that's Fridays live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Then Saturdays, from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we have my good friend Adam Hebert with Mic Check Radio. You can check out him and his hosts, Rob and Wes. They talk politics, they talk geek culture, they talk science, and again, lots of laughs from those guys too. And again, that's Saturdays from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That's when the shows are live. We encourage you to listen 24 hours a day if you humanly can. We would love that. That's Filter Free Radio, live every Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, the Bradcast, live from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Thursdays, we're off. Fridays, we're back with more Turn Up the Night from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And then on Saturdays, it's Mic Check Radio, live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Nothing yet on Sunday, but you never know. We might throw a curveball. So please enjoy our live shows and the recent rebroadcasts that we run 24/7. And find out how to get in touch with us. Let us know how you're listening to Liberal Justice Radio and what you think of the programming and what you'd like to hear more of.
Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and TuneIn.com.
Hi, friends. This is Tom Hartman.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks.
I'm Brad Friedman. I approve of Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com.
Radio or Not.
Radio or Not.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just download the free Stitcher app from Stitcher.com or in the App Store and search for Filter Free Radio. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. So download the free Stitcher app, search for Filter Free Radio, and start benefiting from unfiltered radical truth-telling anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
More quality from Radio or Not's Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean.
Mr. Simpson, the tar fumes are making me dizzy.
Yeah, they'll do that. These fumes aren't as fun as beer. Sure, I'm all dizzy and nauseous. Where's the inflated sense of self-esteem? Woohoo!
Hey, if you guys are getting loaded off them fumes, I'm gonna have to charge you.
It's Jacob Dean on Filter Free Radio.
Okay. Can you repeat the part of this stuff where you said all about things?
No problem, Homer. Welcome back to the second hour of the show. Broadcasting live. It is February 17th, 2014. On FilterFreeRadio.com, live on RadioOrNot.com, live on Liberal Justice Radio, on the TuneIn app. Big news! Starting this Wednesday and Thursday of this week, I'll be filling in for Nicole Sandler as she gets to take a very rare actual vacation, and we're going to be doing the Nicole Sandler Show at radioornot.com this Wednesday and Thursday, and following Monday, Tuesday of next week. And I think of all of the previous times that we filled in for Nicole Sandler, it was always because she was traveling back and forth from Netroots and was going to other functions and things, but never because she was ever taking a vacation. And as far as I know, I mean, hey, I got to take a week or two off the grid every year and go out into the woods, and unplug, right, and recharge. And everyone needs a break once in a while. So, Nicole needs a break too, and always happy to help out. So, that's an announcement to tell you. Hope you'll tune in to radioornot.com Wednesday, Thursday morning, Monday, Tuesday morning of next week. And Nicole is going to be just fine, taking a vacation, all is well. And hey, if you need a vacation, you should unplug, recharge, and then you will be more apt to get active and participate in the solutions, which are social movements. And there are 8 stages of successful social movements. We've been talking about it. This episode, number 106, and we're on stage 4, the social movement takeoff stage. And the overall goal of this stage is to get the whole society to begin seeing, thinking, and acting on the social problems. A movement takeoff gets the whole society moving on the issue. And there are specific goals to create a new grassroots-based nonviolent social movement, to put the power holders' policies in the public consciousness and spotlight on society's agenda of conscientious public issues, to draw the difference between what they say and what they do, to document that difference and to expose that difference, to create a public platform for the movement to educate the populace, force the general population to have to think about the issue by having 2 contradictory views of reality presented consistently, constantly. We have to win the sympathies and the opinions of the public. We have to win hearts and minds, become recognized as the legitimate opposition, and get the power holders to change their minds and policies is not even a goal at this stage, nor is it really essentially the goal anyways, because we, the people, have the power, right? The danger of stage 4 is political gullibility, getting burnout from overwork, and not seeing progress as success. Unrealistic expectations of immediate victory. I know in the world of Twitter, instantaneous communication and instantaneous gratification, not enough, not fast enough anymore. These are unrealistic expectations of immediate victory when we're talking about how do we solve climate change or wealth inequality, how do we solve the warrantless wiretapping, spying on Americans, how do we create a social movement to amend Citizens United, for example. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. And we got to watch out for that. We got to take that into consideration. Now, note, here's a very important point in the 8 stages of successful social movements. After essentially relatively rapidly achieving the goals of this stage, stage 4, the successful social movement should progress to stage 6. However, many activists never recognize this success, and instead they believe that the movement has failed and that their own efforts have been futile. Consequently, they move to stage 5. And this is exactly what happened to the Occupy movement. And again, if you're following along, successful social movements jump from stage 4 to stage 6. If despair sets in, this is where stage 5 comes in, and stage 5 is the identity crisis of powerlessness. Stage 5 is essentially the danger, what we have to watch out for in the entire movement action plan. That is despair. And speaking from personal experience in Keystone XL pipeline protesting and Occupy Wall Street movement protesting over the last 3-4 years. Now, after a year or two, the high hopes of movement takeoff seems inevitable. It's going to turn into despair. Most activists lose their faith that success is just around the corner, and they come to believe nothing is ever going to happen. Folks tune out. They perceive that the powers to be are too strong. People think that the movement has died and that their own efforts have been in vain. And by the end of the takeoff, many activists suffer from battle fatigue after only 2 years of, essentially around-the-clock activity in a crisis atmosphere. At great personal sacrifice, many activists find themselves exhausted, and we have to take a break and get a vacation and don't see anything to show for it at the moment, because what we're fighting for is long ways away, but we have to keep fighting in order to get it. Large numbers of activists who were part of the movement takeoff lose hope. They lose their sense of purpose. They become depressed. They get burnt out, and they drop out. And I've been there, and I've done that. And we took a break and recharged, and I'm ready to come back and kick ass, right? You got to keep fighting. You got to keep up the good fight. And another reason why many activists become depressed at this time is because they are unable to switch from protesting against authority in a crisis atmosphere to waging long-term struggle to achieve positive change. Movement activists need to realize what the power holders already know. The people have the power. The power ultimately lies with we the people, not the powers to be, air quotes there. People have the power. They know it. We know it. We need to recognize the power and the success of social movements, including our own. And we use a framework of successful social movements, or such as this map, to evaluate our movement so we can know when we are progressing forward, when we are achieving success. When we have a plan, we know, and we set goals, and we achieve those goals, we can celebrate that success, and that motivates and inspires us to set more goals and achieve more success. I mean, that's how it works, right? I mean, anyone ever try to lose weight before? I know I have. That's how it works. You set a goal. I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, you don't lose 50 pounds tomorrow. You lose a pound in 2 weeks. Then you lose another pound in 2 weeks. And and you set small goals, right? Short-term goals, long-term goals. And from personal political support groups that enable the activists to participate in movements such as, human beings taking care of personal needs, reduce guilt, have fun, provide support, and challenge in doing political analysis and work. We have to adopt a strict policy of nonviolence. I can't say it enough. And we have to help activists evolve from protesters to long-term social change agents. Provide social change agent training, which includes
what does that mean?
Not only nonviolence, but all the skills for understanding and organizing successful social movements. What that means is don't become a one-issue protester. We have to understand that the life is a struggle on many issues, and we are going to constantly be struggling against a lot of stuff for a really long time.
That's why it's called struggle,
right?
Not like party or
not like party.
We're gonna party until they do what we want.
That's great.
I'm going to binge drink until the government does the will of the people.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And, okay, so, again, stage 5 here, this is the danger stage. If successful social movements go in these 8 stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and we'll get there in just a second. But in case the despair sets in, this is what we got to do. And this is, quite frankly, anytime I have a conversation about this, I get nothing but despair back. I feel powerless. There's nothing I can do. Okay, here's what we got to do. The overall goal is to help us activists become empowered and move on to stage 6 to catch up with the movement. We need to learn what the long road of success looks like and how far we have come along that road. And some specific goals to keep in mind are to become strategists by using a framework, like make a plan so we can follow it, form political personal support groups, adopt nonviolence, adopt empowerment models of organization and leadership, and move from protests to long life social change. And the crisis...
you can't just go on the weekends. You got to live it.
Yes. Nonviolent revolution, indeed. And the crisis of identity and powerlessness is a personal crisis for activists. After the experience of a movement in takeoff stage, their view of the world and themselves is transformed, and we come to realize that the problem is much more serious than we thought. And, the government institutions, the corporate state, the power brokers, and the democratic process to which we thought could help solve social problems were actually kind of part of the problem, and that the problem can only be resolved if we are part of the solution.
That's like my favorite, one of my favorite quotes by Slavoj Žižek, who I love, is what if the way we perceive the problem is the problem?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Right. No, I'm with you. And we're almost done. And yes, there are other things to talk about. Stage.
No worries.
Stage 6. We're almost done. Remember, there are only 8 stages to successful social movements. Spoiler alert. The last 2 are basically the same. And I already told you what number the last one was. That the fight's never over. Okay. Number 6. What? You mean the end is no end?
The end is nigh.
There is no end. Stage 6, majority of the public support. Hey, essentially, success, right? The movement must undergo a transformation from spontaneous individual protests operating in short-term action crisis to a long-term popular struggle to achieve positive social change. We have to win over the sympathies, opinions, hearts, and minds, and even support of an increasingly larger majority of the population and involve more people in the process of opposition and change. The more people who participate, the more they tell their friends about it. That's a 555 plan. Man, that was a long time ago. And although movements need to organize both nationally and locally, they are only as powerful as the power of their grassroots. That's so important. We need national social movements, but in order to get a national social movement, we have to be participating and organizing locally and create local movements first. Therefore, the movement's main goal, the main goal of the social national movement is to nurture and support and empower the grassroots local level activists and groups. And the Stage 6 strategy includes a set of strategic programs, new organizational and leadership models, and an overall grand strategy. Remember, we just talked about we need short-term goals, long-term goals. Short-term plan, long-term plan. Short-term strategy, grand strategy. Ongoing, and Scott and I talk about the grand strategy all the time. It's shifting some paradigms around here. Ongoing low
Changing your lifestyle.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm trying to go fast, man. We're almost done. Ongoing low and damn it, I was going to finish this week. I said, you know what? This stuff is too good. It got cut off last week. I want to do it right. What?
I said, bring it on,
Bring
please.
it on. Ongoing low-intensity local organizing. This is the key to Stage 6. Stage 6 success ultimately lies in the ongoing, day in, day out, basic effort of grassroots local activists. Public speaking, information tables at the supermarket, leaflettering, yard sales, so on. Involve face-to-face education of we the people, by we the people, for we the people, so we can all understand that, hey, we are the people and we're all in this together. Keeping the issue before us and before the public. Massive public education. At this point of success and progress, a renewed use of the mainstream political and social institutions can be a good thing. Nonviolent rallies, demonstrations, campaigns, especially at critical times and places, can be covered by MSNBC. If they want to do it, bring it on. That's great. Citizens' involvement in programs, right? Activists need to develop a grand strategy, the big plan for waging social movements in stage 6. Lacking a viable strategy. And by the way, I'm not reading the whole thing. This whole movement action plan is 36 pages long, right? I don't even have time to do the whole 36 pages. I'm doing a Jacob Dean edited 13-page version of this. And if you
JD version, the Cliff Notes.
This is a Cliff Notes version, and if you're like, I see folks in the chat room asking, questions about like a loophole in the strategy here or there, it's because I don't have time to do all 36 pages, and you should go read the whole movement action plan. Like I always suggest, anytime we do a book or anytime we do one of these things, read the whole thing. It's on the Facebook page.
Awesome.
Okay. Activists need to develop a grand strategy for waging the solution, which is social movements in stage 6. And most activists are unable to see the relationship between our day-to-day activities and the accomplishments of the movement's goals. We have to keep the issue in the public spotlight, keep it on the society's agenda over time, keep the policies and conditions which violate our values and interests and beliefs of we the people in the public spotlight. Identify all of the movement's key goals, make the plan, stick to it, identify which stage each is in and develop strategies to achieve them. Identify the movement's full range of demands from the very specific to the general, beyond reforms. This is the grand strategy, beyond reforms. We need real alternatives, larger demands, and a new paradigm. The sustainable solutions to the systemic issues. Guide the movement through the dynamics of conflict with the power holders. It's something we got to do. We actually have to walk ourselves through what's going to happen. Waging so we can prepare for it and plan, right? We need plans. Waging a social movement is similar to playing chess. The movement and power holders can constantly engage in moves and counter moves to win the public and build conditions to support their own position. The goals of stage 6 are to keep the issue and the power holders' violation of our values in the public spotlight, switch from only crisis protest to waging social struggle long-term to achieve positive social change, gear our efforts to public to keep winning a bigger majority opinion, involve larger numbers of the population in programs at the grassroots level, propose alternatives, more demands, and a new paradigm, and have activists able to use a strategic framework and adopt empowerment, organizational, and leadership models. The danger of stage 6 is that activists become stuck in the protest stage, and the movement becomes violent, rebellious, and you have this like macho radicalism, right? Believing that the movement is losing and local efforts are useless. National organizations and leadership defranchise the grassroots activists by dominating the movement. We got to look out for that, and we can't let that happen. And finally, but wait, we're there. Stage 7 is success. Stage 7 begins when the long process of building opposition reaches a new plateau in which the new social consensus turns the tide of power against the power holders and begins an in-game process leading to the movement's success. And the chief engine for change switches from the social movement to the traditional progressives. The drive behind change becomes those I'm not a political majority of the population and the mainstream political, social, and economical groups and institutions. And the public becomes involved in such a broad range of social actions which keep the spotlight on those issues, it reveals the evils of the present policies, creates real political, economical penalties, and most of the business and political power holders are forced to defect from their ties to the status quo because it's in their own best interest at that point. The penalty for defending the status quo will become bigger than for accepting the alternative. And the viability of the central power holders' policies is eroded economically and politically, and the majority of the power holders have changed their mind, joined we the people, while the central power holders are isolated and eventually defeated. And the central power holders are forced into making fatal mistakes. They use dirty tactics against the oppression. They overreach with violence, increasingly prevented from doing what is fully required to successfully carry out their policies. They resort to extreme emergency acts of political and economic decrees and repression, and they serve only to spur, inspire, and motivate the people. And the public demands change. That's when success happens. And the opposition to the power holders is so overwhelming that the whole issue is publicly recognized as we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. And there's like no doubt. While a majority opposition has existed for some years now, the masses, the population was never willing to act before. People never got active before because they felt powerless, right? I know why you don't get active, because you feel powerless and did not know what to do, and we're not called on to get active, and we fear the alternative. But now, stage 7, success, citizens are so disgusted that their desire to end the present policies and conditions overtakes the worry about the consequences of the alternative. But wait, there's more. There are still goals that we have to achieve at stage 7. Yes, they're goals to success. What? I thought we were done. There is no end. Spoiler alert, there is no end. Wage a successful end game strategy to achieve one or more demands. Have activists recognize the success and their own role in it, raise larger issues and propose alternative paradigms, and create new decentralized centers of power based on more participatory structures and an empowered public. And continue the movement. We cannot and not, these are the dangers of stage 7. The movement must avoid compromising. We cannot compromise too many values and key demands. We must avoid achieving minor reforms without building toward basic social change. We must avoid having activists feel dismayed and powerless because they do not recognize our success and the movement's role in a successful endgame. And having apparent final victory in the movement, there is no end. The movement finally achieves one or more of its demands, but now we have to address some hard questions. What is success and what needs to be done next? The movement needs to recognize success is achieved, follow up on the demands that we have won, raise larger issues, focus on other demands which are in other various stages, and propose larger alternatives and a new paradigm. And guess what? On that note, it's time to take our last short break here at the bottom of the hour. We'll come back with the very last stage, stage 8, continuing the struggle. I'll let Skeptical Scott say something, and then we'll take some phone calls. Who knows? It's more filter-free radio. Don't go anywhere. We're wrapping up this very important conversation next. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah, and Lee Camp, Moment of Clarity. It'll make you laugh. Stay tuned.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just download the free Stitcher app from Stitcher.com or in the App Store and search for Filter Free Radio. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. So download the free Stitcher app, search for Filter Free Radio, and start benefiting from unfiltered radical truth-telling anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Talking about developing a new radical revolution of values, talking about progressing forward, talking about change. And if we're so subject to beholden to the status quo, we've prevented ourselves from progressing forward. It's like if Hillary Clinton is the Democratic Party, which she is, then it's time for us to abandon the Democratic Party.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
1 + 1 is 11, people. Don't you? I thought that... Anyways.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Follow like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
This is your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. Assuming I did actually read this in the news and it's not some bizarre salmonella-laced bean burrito hallucination, George Zimmerman announced that he will have a celebrity boxing match with anyone who would like to take him up on it. So in the next few months, it's not impossible that we'll see a cold-blooded killer on national TV getting his head pounded in during some kind of national catharsis, a mass moment of schadenfreude mixed with vengeance, mixed with morbid curiosity, mixed with an obsession of all things spectacle, mixed with beer. So this is the replacement of an actual functional justice system with the justice system of the final days of Rome. Throw the villains in with the tigers and see what happens. You know, even if the occasional one is innocent, it makes for a damn fine evening of entertainment with the family. Get together with friends and take bets on which one of Zimmerman's bones will make the loudest pop. My money's on fibula. This is everything that's wrong with America and everything we should all fight against. Inherent in this story is racism, fear, a flawed police system, the over-militarization of, well, everyone, a flawed legal system, a flawed legislature for passing stand your ground, the fetishization of any and all celebrity, even the celebrity that comes for murdering an unarmed black kid, the parlaying of that celebrity into wealth, because I'm sure Zimmerman won't do this fight without $1 million paycheck, the obsession with using violence to solve every dispute. Don't like Zimmerman? Tune in to see him have his face shoved up his own ass. And finally, the complete and utter loss of, well, taste. How about we not do this simply because it's ooey? When was the last time we took taste into consideration in something? It was clearly before toddlers and tiaras. And the saddest part is not the endless exploitation of a revolting kind of celebrity embodied in Zimmerman. It's that this is all a reflection of us. Zimmerman would not be able to make money from an insane, morbid spectacle if it weren't for our love of spectacle. We eat it up like goddamn Cheetos. We love the meteoric rise of a celeb, and we love the fall even more. We jump on a celebrity collapse like cheetahs on a carcass. Justin Bieber, Lindsay Lohan, Chris Christie, Charlie Sheen, Pinocchio. Remember when Pinocchio started using his powers for evil? That was a sad time. But we all tuned in to watch the trial anyway. We don't stop watching these people once they start to have problems. We watch them more than ever. We're just running around looking at crumble. Oh, man. Of course, Zimmerman is different because he's not a politician or an actor. He is perhaps the first professional celebrity murderer. I know we've obviously had hitmen before and we've had celebrity serial killers, but He's perhaps the first to make his living from the celebrity he got from killing an unarmed person. That's a hell of a resume. Finally, when and if this boxing match takes place, the $1 million paid to Zimmerman, or whatever amount is appropriate to have your teeth knocked in for the pleasure of a nation, will likely be paid by a combination of sponsors and pay-per-view sales, products piggybacking on the emotion of the spectacle, the continued degradation of being into having, owning. So at the heart of it, everyone tuning in will deep down be getting one of two messages. Either, don't have enough courage to stand up to the racist system in your day-to-day life? Then simply watch as someone punches George Zimmerman in the face and basically stands up for you. You'll feel as if you have that courage. And drink Bud Light with lime. So from here on out, Bud Light with lime will taste like courage. Or the message, don't like that black people or others are fucking taking over the country with their hoodies and their rap music and their presidency. Then tune in to see your hero George Zimmerman defend his championship and drink Bud Light with lime. It will taste like real Americans. You know, the ones with less pigment in their skin. So at the end of the day, what are we left with? Bud Light with lime. That's it. Put it on the fucking flag. That's been your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. I want to thank two of my biggest supporters, Tony Belize and Shawnee. You guys are incredible. And I hope everybody will join me over at Facebook.com/LeeCampComedian. I update news and comedy stuff all day long. So I hope you'll check it out over there. Keep fighting, everybody.
I'm John Oliver, and I power yoga to Moments of Clarity.
This is Greg Tallis, and I've got my zipper caught in Moments of Clarity.
My name is Janine Garofalo, and I exfoliate every day with a moment of clarity.
This is your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net.
I've narrowed your choices down to 5 unthinkable options. Each will cause untold misery.
I'd pick number 3.
You don't even want to read them first?
I was elected to lead, not to read. Number 3.
Yes, you're in deep doo now.
Millhouse, you don't care about the environment. Hey, I am very passionate about the planet.
Say global warming is a myth.
It's a myth. Further study is needed. Oh!
That's for selling out your beliefs.
Indeed. Stand up for your morals and don't sell out your beliefs. I mean, there is like a moral obligation to the future generations and to those who came before us that we should be taking out of need, not out of greed, because, hey, we can't eat money and we can't drink oil. And we're talking about what is the solution to climate change or wealth inequality? Or what is the solution to warrantless wiretapping and spying on Americans? What is the solution to the corporate media propaganda? What is the solution to just about almost all of the problems? The solution is social movements, and not just any social movement, successful social movements. Throughout this program, we've been talking about why social movements are the solutions. Why do we need movements? Why should they be nonviolent movements? Why does the movement need a plan? Why do we need to be participating locally? Who has the power? What is the action plan map? What are the 8 stages of successful social movements? And what are the goals and dangers of each stage? We've been talking about how we make it happen. And here is the sum, the conclusion, finally, stage 8, which is the end. Stage 8 is continuing the struggle. The success achieved in stage 7 is not the end, but not the end of the struggle, but rather a basis for continuing that struggle and creating new beginnings. And the movement has to continue the struggle in 5 different ways. First, celebrate the success, of course, absolutely. Follow up. We have to work on achieving other demands. The movement needs to focus on achieving other demands. Go beyond reform to social change. Social movements need to go beyond immediate reforms and to build toward fundamental structural changes by creating empowered people who become lifelong social change agents and not just one-issue protesters. We have to create ongoing grassroots political organizations and networks, broaden the analysis, broaden the issues, broaden the debate, broaden the goals of the movement, and propose new alternatives and worldviews and paradigms that put forward new political, social systems and not just oppose symptoms of problems, but let's actually solve systemic issues with sustainable solutions. And the solutions are social movements. And the movement's goals are to assure that the demands that have been achieved are maintained, and to circle back to focus the movement on other demands. Beware the danger of stage 8 is having any new success either inadequately implemented or revoked from backlash. Continue the social movement. If you got that far, you can make it more, right? And the conclusion, this is Bill Moyer writing in the conclusion, there is no end. There is only the continuing struggle, acted out in cycles of social movements. The process of winning one set of demands creates new levels of citizen consciousness and empowerment and generates new movements on new demands and new issues for new citizens. So it's never over. And the people's movements move the world further along the path towards more fully meeting the spiritual, physical, social, and political needs of humanity. And moreover, the very process of being fully involved in the struggle of the people's movements contributes to the people's political and spiritual fulfillment. Tell you all the time, I never feel greater than when I go and participate in the movement and participate in protests. Nothing is more motivating and inspiring than participating, at least for me. And I think
even if it accomplishes nothing, I mean, as we can argue with the Occupy movement, for example, did, it felt really good to get out there, man.
Mm.
I mean, it was so rewarding just to go and stand and look around. In some cases, thousands or even just hundreds of other people, meet new people and talk to other like-minded individuals and go, oh, thank God I'm not the only one who sees this crap. You know what I mean? And to like, because sometimes you just feel like you're alone in the world when you talk to everybody and all they want to talk about is celebrity gossip or the Olympics or whatever. It's just totally meaningless in our daily lives. And you're able to find people who are like-minded, who get it, who understand that shit is fucked up, and want to do something about it. And it's just like, oh, okay, we got something here. Let's do something. You know what I mean? Even if it accomplishes nothing, at the very least, you build community.
Yep, absolutely. And that's essentially the goal of the show and the goal of organizing, protesting and organizing social movements. It's not to protest the government or to protest the corporate state. It is to mobilize the people and to get the people participating and involved and activated. And like we're talking now in the chat room, radioornot.com, somebody mentions, I'm controllable now because I have a lot to lose. I have a pension, I have health care, I have a good job and a small farm, but millennials have none of that. And when I see mine going away, neither will I. Absolutely. I was talking about that in the chat room earlier this morning on Nicole's show about how, it's like, how come corporate media never covers social movements or protests? It's because it doesn't serve their purpose. And when you've been on the inside of that kind of corporate media machine, or those people who are in somewhat positions of power and somewhat positions of like celebrity status, if you will, you have something to lose, and you have to walk a certain line. And those of us who have nothing to lose are obviously more in depth in their participation, right?
Can I coach on that?
Yeah.
That's a good one, dude. Well, that's the whole point, is the so-called media, if you will, is the status quo.
Right.
I mean, there's only, 5, soon to be 4 corporations own everything most people see, read, and hear.
Right.
And so they got you by the balls.
Yeah.
They create telling you what to believe, what to think every day in their media, beating you over the head. And so it's just, there is no, there is no popular resistance against the status quo, at least not in the so-called mainstream, because it's not in their best interest. They are the status quo. And as soon as you realize that the ABC News and all these cocksuckers you watch on television are the mainstream. They're making millions of dollars to tell you, to ignore. Or actually, another big thing too, if I can just tangential.
Yeah.
The lie of omission is still a lie. And what the corporate media engages in mostly, more than their falsehoods and more than their deceiving half-truths, is the lie of omission. They don't tell you the more important issues. They don't even talk. I mean, you can't watch the nightly news, have them talk about weather, and not once mention climate change or global warming or whatever the F you want to call it. It's a lie of omission. And then, of course, there's always the sideshow and the distractions. That's basic bread and circus, like the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and empires have life spans, expectancies.
Oh, yeah. We're at the end of ours, that's for sure.
This is essentially how Bill Moyer wraps up his Movement Action Plan essay from 1987, the revised version. And again, I strongly suggest please go find a copy of it. It's all over. Historyisaweapon.org is the website that has a copy of it. Posted a link to it on our Facebook page. And this is essentially Bill Moyer's conclusion. He says, activists are part of the emerging people power movements around the world, which we're still seeing today, even though this is written in late 70s, early 80s. People worldwide are struggling to transform themselves and transform the world from the present era of superpowers, materialism, environmental breakdown, disenfranchisement, abject poverty, and militarism to a new, more human era of democracy, freedom, justice, self-determination, human rights, peaceful coexistence, preservation of the environment, and the meeting of basic human needs. And consequently, the long-term impacts are more important than their immediate successes. The civil rights movement, for example, created a new positive image of African Americans among themselves and whites, and established nonviolent action as a means to achieve people power, directly spun off the student and anti-Vietnam War movements, and inspired people's movements, got the American people for the first time to challenge and change American foreign policy, and created the Vietnam Syndrome, in which the American people opposed the century-old policy of U.S. military intervention in Latin America to achieve the interests of American power holders. Social movements are contagious. Heck yeah, that's why they're shutting down anyone who dares spread about the courage that we need, right? So, hey, we'll see. At least someone has developed some sort of plan, some sort of movement action plan for social movements, and put together a framework that we can look at and say, hey, look, as we get active and we participate and we create a social movement for change, for real hope and real change that we need, we have a framework. Now, it's not exactly perfect, and it's not exactly going to go and fit in, this nice, neat framework on paper. It looks great on paper, but in reality, kind of different. Yeah, of course. Social movements are dynamic, and there are many different ways to get to the destination. And that is the beauty of it, because there are so many avenues, there are so many issues, there are so many people, right? And if we, the people, get over the fact that, it's we, the people, who have the power, and the power holders only have their power and their wealth because of our cooperation, that the beehive only gets all the honey for the queen bee because the worker bees make it, right? And so if the worker bees didn't make the honey, then the bears would be shit out of luck. I don't know. You got to have a little bit of fun, right? And I don't know. But yeah, right? So, hey, Scott, man, you haven't got to talk much all episode, and it's not because I don't want you to talk.
I thought reading on the air was frowned upon.
Yeah, but that was good, and I was basically paraphrasing most of it. But it's good stuff. It is good stuff. And if there's any take-home message, read, for gosh sakes, turn off your TV, turn off your radio, and read something.
Shutting out the poison is a really important first step. I gotta say. I mean, that's the whole thing that I've become staunchly anti-establishment the older I get. And the more I learn, I become fundamentally anti-establishment, even down to the music I listen to. I mean, the music I listen to is all indie bands. I don't listen to music that's played on the radio. I don't even listen to the radio. So I just assume what I listen to is not played on the radio. But anyway,
Right.
the point is that I can't watch corporate media anymore. It's to the point where, I used to watch MSNBC, and it was like, okay, these guys on Fox are crazy and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I can't watch that crap anymore. I can't even watch PBS anymore. It's just a continued downward spiral of falsehoods and just spinning. It's not even real. It's not even reality. It's kabuki theater. It's distraction. And
Job preservation, job security.
Yeah. I mean, I have the daunting task of dodging potholes on my way to my low-paying part-time job, which takes me past the brand-new $200 million NPR building in D.C. Now, what the fuck does the National Public Radio need a $200 million building for? They've been in the same other building for 30 years, and it was apparently not good enough for them. They could maybe update it. I don't know. The point here is that building was paid for by the Koch brothers, Archer Daniels Midland, Kellogg's, etc. It was not paid for by you and I making $20 donations, and so they serve that interest, and that's supposed to be our public radio. I mean, come on. It's just one small example of the takeover of our society by corporations, and we have to begin to fight back in small and large ways.
Yeah,
small ways. I mean, don't use paper towels. Drive less, whatever.
Here's a perfect example, apropos of what you're talking about, Scott. Something that I'm personally really excited to see happening here locally, where I am in Portland, Oregon. There is an effort to create, and they're doing this because of the new FCC low-powered FM a thing that passed recently. It's a great thing, actually, to give more power to the community radio station. It's a great thing. And there's a new community radio station starting up in Portland, and as progressive as you might think Portland is, I mean, Bain Capital killed KPOJ for good, like the Friday after the 2012 election. And there's been, I mean, we have KBOO. KBOO's nice. It's a little unorganized. But there's a new progressive radio station, community radio station, that is starting up, and it's all via grassroots efforts, the community coming together, organizing around really basic ideas, a really basic premise, and they've got great ideas. And they're launching, and they started a this Kickstarter thing where the crowdfunding. Like, if you come up with a really good idea,
crowdsourcing,
and people like the idea, you can throw it out there, and people can kick in $1 or $2 or however many they want, and actually fund it monetarily, provide the framework in which the idea can exist. And this little community radio station, which is called X-Ray.fm. X-Ray, it's kind of cool, like an X-ray, X, the letter X, ray.fm. And they're going to air Tom Hartman, and they're going to air Carl Wolfson, and they're going to air Adam Klugman, and they're going to air progressive music, local music, community, activism, and all this good jazz. And you guys should, if you like Filter Free Radio, you should get a hold of X-Ray and say, hey, you guys should pick up Filter Free Radio and put it on X-Ray FM. That would be a good thing. And
why don't you just call him, dude?
It doesn't work that way. If a radio station, if they get 100 listeners call in and tell them that they should carry the show that's broadcasted live in Portland on your Portland community radio station, then they might consider it. But if I call them up and say, hey, I'm hosting a show, it looks you see the difference.
But
my point is, guess what? This community radio station, in their Kickstarter thing, they were hoping to raise about $10,000 to establish a new studio and to broadcast and radio tower and all this other stuff, which is like very cheap and they're going to have like 8 watts of FM power, and it's mostly going to be an online radio station. But check this out. In their Kickstarter, they received over like $100,000 in donations of people saying, yeah, this is a great idea. Here's $20. Hope I can help out. Hope it helps. And their idea of a $10,000 radio station just turned into a $100,000 radio station. And being a radio station engineer, I know that the price can jump dramatically. Having built a studio from scratch twice that was in the range of a $30,000 to $40,000 studio. Been there, done that.
But dude, go volunteer for them, for crying out loud. What are you waiting for?
Well, but the thing is it can be done. And these guys got $100,000 now, and the community behind them. And they're going to be on the air on like 91 point something or whatever. But anyways, I hope you get my
3 mile radius.
I hope you get my. But they're going to be online though. It's going to be primarily an online focus. But the idea is if the people come together and they dig it, and the idea permeates throughout everyone, and they share it, and it grows, it can work. People can come together. We can pull together what resources we have. I mean, we've never taken $1, not once in 3 years here on our show. No donate to PayPal button, no nothing. We haven't taken a penny, not yet. And I have Kickstarter ideas. We're going to do a new website. We have lots of cool things coming, streams, ideas, maybe a toll-free number to people who actually would like to call into the show, and we don't have a toll-free number. There's ideas,
maybe
lots of
some
stuff.
extra broadcasting equipment instead of an old PC.
Yeah, we can. We have ideas, and we can talk.
Yeah.
Keeping up with the Joneses, that's for sure, right? We gotta keep up with the Joneses. No
technology. That is.
We've actually done a really good job of keeping almost zero cost of this show, and that's why everything is for free. We don't. You don't have to pay for anything. Filter Free Radio. It's all free on our website, on iTunes, on YouTube, on Stitcher. It's free. It's free. It's free.
Oh yeah, we're all beholden to those websites too. I mean, God forbid they start charging us, then we're screwed.
Yeah, and then we're out. I mean, it's simple as that.
Yeah.
I broadcast on free software.
The internet. I think the only thing we pay for really is our internet service provider.
Yeah.
And even that's not that great.
I'm happy you mentioned that, Scott, because I actually believe, and this is my personal, honest opinion, that in today's world, I mean, in the most like general sense, in today's world, the movement that we can actually create in this country, in this sleeping, materialistic, electronic hallucination country, I think the movement that we can actually create and organize around is a free internet movement, because the internet is the commons. If we want to give our future a chance, people should be able to read something on the internet. It's like going to the library. And I think because none of us are, I can guarantee you not one of you is at your local library listening to Filter Free Radio on the local library for free. You are somehow, some way paying someone something to watch this show. And by damn it, I don't want you to have to do that. I think it should be free.
You're not using dial-up, that's for sure, which I think might be free these days.
I'm serious. I'm serious.
No, that's the whole point. That's the whole part of net neutrality, and the war against net neutrality is because they want to commodify everything.
Yep.
That's the whole death of our capitalistic society, is everything becomes a commodity, including information and truth. And you exploit that commodity until collapse. I mean, there's a news out on Common Dreams today where the next big trick for television is to target you. Like the Dish Network is combining with DirecTV, and what they're going to do is they're going to use your DVR while you're not using it to save advertisements that they want you to watch. And then when you're watching regular television, they're going to override the broadcast advertisements with the advertisements that the political strategists have paid for. So they customize advertisements for you, the viewer, based on your viewing and your demographic. I mean, I don't know what more brainwashing you need, but that's I mean, that's one succinct way of forcing information down people's throats. So I mean, it just shows to go you that it's time to cut off the television. There's really nothing. I mean, I could really do without my TV. I should just get rid of it.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of my favorite bands.
I know.
Kill your television off of the, what album is that? By the Way album? That's a good one.
Although I did watch Dawes last night on the PBS.
Did you see that? Dawes was on Austin City Limits. Fucking love Dawes. Okay.
I know.
On that note.
But the point, yeah, I know. TV's good for something.
On that note.
That's the $75 I pay for it.
We've got a minute left, and so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up. I'm hitting the wall a little bit here, and I think we did the social movements conversation justice. I hope you dug it as much as I did. I hope you believe that social justice movements are like, our solution. So more of a solution than the electoral process is presenting, at least from the evidence I can see, but I'm just saying, time to get active. Huge thank you to everyone who makes the show possible. I couldn't do it without you, first and foremost. My brother from another mother, super duper awesome ass producer, kick-ass, Skeptical Scott. Love you, man. Thanks for being with us, as always. Big thanks to Nicole Sandler for syndicating us on Radio or Not Network and allowing us to fill in this week and next week. We'll see you on the Nicole Sandler Show coming up. Big thanks to Kenny Pick for syndicating us on Liberal Justice Radio, on TuneIn Radio, and A Online Radio. Thanks to Kevin McLeod of Incompetech.com and Dano of DanoSongs.com for music production. Thanks to our webmaster website, Guru Shano, for giving us our awesome new website coming soon. And the website that we have. Thanks, man. Huge thanks to you, our listeners, and our friends for liking the show, spreading the word, and helping us grow. Big thanks to everyone in the chat room. Hey, guys. Love the conversation. Appreciate you all very much. Big thanks to JD Fishin, the puppy sitter of Filter Free Radio, with whom I would not be able to do the show. And remember, if you want to contribute to Filter Free Radio in any way, email me, and I want to get you on the thank you list. Don't forget, we need you to help, participate, get active. You need to be the change with us. Make a difference. Keep the good up. Keep the good fight up, right? We'll see you next Monday. Rock and roll, everybody.
Filter Free
There's
Radio.
a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe, and I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.